What about fish though? Because a couple of things, haven't people always lived on fish, and don't we need fish to feed the world? And even better, if we grow them in fish ponds out of the oceans, isn't that like much more? It doesn't hurt the ocean as much. So why not? People might say, I understand why we don't want to eat beef and chicken and pork because we mistreat the animals. But what's so bad about eating fish?
Well, I'll say one thing. Well, I'll say something on this, and then Hope, if you want to talk about the fish farms or just the farming of fish, you probably have a lot more info on that than I do. But what I would like to say is about our oceans. Our oceans are in dire condition like the rest of the environment. Our planet is really in crisis. And so overfishing of our oceans is causing problems on so many levels. There are the trawlers, the giant ships that go out and, bring in all of the fish and the shrimp and crabs and the bottom dwellers and all of that. And when those trawlers are bringing in their catch, there's bycatch. So dolphins and sea turtles and other sea life are absolutely impacted, injured, and killed by the fishing industry in our oceans. Also, the overfishing is just depleting the fish life, and the ecosystem is really suffering because of overfishing and the damage it's causing to the ocean. And I believe there's a scientific theory that the oceans could be fishless by 2048. If anyone can validate that year, I believe it's 2048. At the rate we're going, that's the theory with the science and the studies, at the rate that the fishing industry is going, and all of the issues associated with it, and just the devastation. So there's that. I mean, there are other animals in the ocean that are caught up in this, and of course the suffering of the fish themselves that are being caught for to be sold for consumption. It's an awful industry, and I highly recommend everybody watch Seaspiracy, because Seaspiracy will give all of the important facts and information. It's a documentary by the same guys that did Cowspiracy and What the Health, and it's very eye-opening. I mean, I thought I knew about like the oceans and the fishing industry to some degree, but when I saw that documentary, I learned so much. So I really recommend that. And then Hope, I don't know if you want to take over.
Yeah, sure. That was really wonderful, Brittany. Absolutely. So powerful and so true that we are just devastating our ocean with fishing. To something I'll add to that is, fishing really is just hunting in the ocean. So because these are wild caught fish, right? So if someone is against hunting, then you should be against fishing too. It's the same thing. We're just hunting in the ocean. So just kind of keeping that in mind. But so the last time when I was on the Real Truth About Health conference last year, I gave a presentation on fish. So I encourage you to check that out if you want to get some greater detail. I go into some great detail. But what I'll talk about is the aquaculture and fishing, the fish farming. And it's really interesting because I have actually visited some fish farms. I don't know if anybody's ever been to a fish farm, but as you're walking up, so they have the fish in these small tanks, pools, and they're maybe the size of a hot tub, maybe a small swimming pool. And you're walking up and you see these pools and they're just black. They're like mud, very, very dark, right? The water is so dark, and they're often on a lake or at the ocean where you see the blue water, green water, or whatever the color of the water is supposed to be. And you see this black water. You're walking up and you look in and you suddenly realize that there are so many fish because they're just on top of each other and the water is just agitating, and they have them crammed in there where they can't even swim in a straight line. They're just on top of one another. And I think how just miserable that's got to be. And the reason that the water is so thick and muddy is that they're swimming in their own waste. They have just, they filled it with waste. It's miserable and horrible. And these places are known for having just a ton of pharmaceuticals and antibiotics and all kinds of chemicals that they dump in there, trying to keep the fish healthy enough to grow to a slaughter weight so they can kill them. It's really awful. And sea lice is another big issue. So sea lice is a problem in the ocean, but not, not horrible. But sea lice thrive in these fish farms. And sea lice actually, it eats away at the skin around the fish's eyes, around their head. It can just eat away their flesh. It's very painful, and fish do feel pain. That is absolutely determined by science. There's a wonderful book called What a Fish Knows by Jonathan Balcombe, where he talks about the numerous studies that they've done, and the scientific community has come to the overwhelming conclusion that yes, fish feel pain, absolutely. And so their flesh is just eaten away by the sea lice, and the sea lice just thrive in these horrible conditions because they can just jump right to the next fish, to the next host fish. So they're really, really terrible. I think they have something like a 20% mortality rate before slaughter. So basically 20% of the fish are just going to die because it's such horrible conditions, and that's considered an acceptable loss. Really horrible stuff. And, we have to keep in mind that even though they're so kind of separate from us, so different from us, they live in a different world, they live in a different environment. Fish are our ancestors. They are animals. They're our kin, right? And we have to remember that they too are individuals. They are sentient. They are playful. They're amazing animals. And again, I'll just plug that book, What a Fish Knows. Wonderful studies around the individuality, the personalities of fishes, and just keeping in mind that they deserve to live just as much as a dog, a cat, a cow, a pig. So fish are incredible, incredible animals.
Yes, absolutely. Everything you said was perfect. Thank you, Hope. I completely agree with all of that. I want to mention one other thing about the oceans real quick is that forgot to mention earlier, but all of the pollution that is caused from the fishing industry also needs to be acknowledged, because there's so much trash. And I mean, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, there's like these huge areas of the ocean that are just, the trash just accumulates, and it's horrible. The fishing line, the hooks, all the nets discarded in the ocean, they end up tangling animals, tangling sea life. But not just for the animals themselves, but for our environment, the fishing industry is polluting it. I mean, our oceans are polluted from that industry, and there's just so much waste and trash that ends up in the ocean from it. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, Hope is right. Fish have every much of a right to live and be free from harm as cows, pigs, dogs, cats. And that is really the basis of speciesism. A fish is a dog, is a pig, is a cow, is a human. I mean, we're all earthlings. We're all living, breathing, feeling creatures. We're all capable of pain, fear, love, joy, and all of it. And so it's just really about trying to educate people, trying to dismantle speciesism, and trying to break down the walls of cognitive dissonance that have programmed us from birth, that have conditioned us to believe that other animals are inferior. We're all equal.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hands and then ask a brief question and go ahead. Okay, Kaylee, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Kaylee from Plainview, New York. I'd like to know what you guys know about family life of fish. I know that whales and dolphins have often saved the lives of people who were lost out in sea and actually showed them the way back. But I don't know anything about the family life of fish that are not whales or dolphins. What can you tell me about that?
Sure, I could take that one. So interestingly, family life and caregiving of offspring is very complex with a lot of fish species. A lot of times we think that fish just lay eggs and go away, and the little fish, hatch and fend for themselves, and that is the case with some of the species. But other species, they have a lot of complexity around caregiving of their offspring. There's species that will build little protection nests and rafts around their eggs. There's others that will keep their eggs and their babies once they're born in their mouths for protection, right? And you can see these videos, these wonderful videos of like the little babies are just swimming around, and suddenly there's like oh, what's happening, like something danger. Mama will open her mouth and all the fishies go bloop, 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 bloop in her mouth for protection. And those fish actually, while that is happening, they will lose body weight because they're not eating at that time. They're just protecting their fish. They'll sometimes lose a great deal of their body weight because they're just taking care of their babies. So I'm trying to remember, there were some other wonderful stories about caregiving and parenting that I have in my presentation, but it's not coming to me now. But I will tell another story just to show the complexities of fish. And this one is about two little goldfish that were observed, and the story was told. And it was Blackie and Big Red, okay? And two little goldfish. Blackie was a little black moor goldfish, that's the species. And he was born a little wonky. He just kind of hopped around the bottom of his tank. He couldn't swim well. And he had a buddy, a friend in the tank with him, Big Red. And Big Red was just a gorgeous big goldfish. So when it was time for feeding, and you drop the food in on the top of the tank and it kind of floats down, right? Big Red would swim under Blackie, and he would lift Blackie up and take him around to eat and let Blackie eat first. And then he gently put him back down, and then Big Red would go and eat for himself. And what a beautiful thing. So we're seeing caregiving and compassion and selflessness, right? Are those things you would have ever thought to think about fish, to put those words to a fish? Probably not. But now you've heard Blackie and Big Red's story, right? And this is the complexity that is in the fish community. On so many levels. They are individuals just like us. So, yeah.
So from your experience as some people who have been passionate about these issues in the past, you've given lectures before, you've spoken to people. What is happening? Like, what do politicians say? What does the news media say? What does the public say? Like, this isn't the first time we're discussing this. So there are influential people in the world. Do they hear you? Do they care? Like, what has been the response to your books, to your lectures, to your media tours? What happens when you tell people this stuff? What do they do? What happens?
Well, I think change is happening, just not as fast or as soon as we would like. And Hope can probably speak to this more because you've been in the movement a long time, longer than me. So you could probably speak it on that. But I will just say, from my observations, I think that in large part due to the climate crisis, this planetary crisis, like we are facing a planetary catastrophe, really. And so I think because of that, there are many people that are worried about their children's future and their grandchildren's future on this planet, that it's coming to a tipping point. Like, this is all building to a point where we cannot continue on this way. We cannot maintain this kind of system. Things have to change. Factory farming, first and foremost, has got to go. I mean, all animal agriculture needs to end. But, you know, the massive scale of harm that factory farming is causing to the water and the air and the, you know, yeah, everything, the whole environment is really significant. It's major. So I think that there are many people who are realizing on a climate and environmental level that this kind of system just cannot continue. And so that, I think, is really waking a lot of people up. I would love to see everybody have compassion for animals and stop this horrific system for the animals. But like I said earlier, it's all connected. The environment, the animals, our health, you know, we are animals too. So it's all connected, and things really, really need to change. So hope you can take over.
Well, I'll just say, yeah, I have been observing the reaction and the how people feel about veganism for a very long time. For 30 years now, I've been kind of observing this in news and media, and I have seen a great deal of progress. Of course, we still have a long way to go, but that said, I love Time magazine. I love National Geographic, and over the years, I've seen a real shift in the consciousness, in the level of attention that's given to animals, to the vegan issue. I think it has been really positive in media. I'll give a couple of examples. I think it was in Time magazine. I can't remember if it was Time or National. I think it was Time. Fairly recently, they had what you can do to reduce your impact on climate change. Now, they've been doing this for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, right? Different environmental or just regular magazines, journals will have like the things you can do. And of course, those things are like, drive less or whatever they say, different, use the light bulbs, the better light bulbs, energy efficient light bulbs, or, turn your water off while you're brushing your teeth, things like that, right? You never, hardly ever see anything about diet. Well, this list just recently, it had reduce or eliminate, I think it even said or eliminate animal products or meat from your diet. And it was like one of the top 3 things. I was shocked. I was like, wow, amazing. Thank you. So it is happening. Another one that I saw in National Geographic, I actually see a lot in National Geographic that it used to be that kind of only the large fauna would get attention in so much that they would like a story about a lion or a story about a koala bear or something like that would get kind of the attention, and maybe they would say he or she about the animal instead of calling the animal it, things like that, the things that using species as language. But I saw this wonderful article recently about spiders that dream. And there was this wonderful biologist, researcher that was studying spiders, and she found that they actually dream. She, concluded that they dream. And it said something in the article like, well, if spiders dream, maybe we'll think twice before stepping on them or squishing them or something like that, And so this consciousness is really starting to raise around animals, around their individuality, around their right to live free of suffering. So I think there's some beautiful progress that you can see if you really look for it.
Okay, I want to thank both of you very much for joining us tonight. We very much appreciate it if we could unmute everyone's mic so everyone can join me in letting Brittany and Hope know that we appreciate them speaking tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.